Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the Tower of Dawn vlog. We've got Herbert here to help to start with. He decided that at the moment I started recording he wanted to chew my tripod, which is not okay. Stop it. So yes, welcome to the Tower of Dawn vlog. This is, I don't know how many books are in this series, but this is one of the vlogs that I've been doing, me documenting reading the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. As with all of the other videos in this series, there will be major spoilers for the Throne of Glass series and probably also spoilers for ACOTAR and the Crescent City series as well, as there have been a few times I think when I have mentioned those series and spoilers for those series in these videos. So if you have not read this book or you haven't read this series, I really recommend going and reading them and then coming back to this vlog to see my thoughts and feelings. Or if you just don't care about spoilers, then keep going. So yeah, this is the Tower of Dawn vlog. I've been putting off starting this vlog for the past few days because I've actually started the book. I've just been putting off vlogging because I'm scared I'm gonna jinx myself. So as you know, with Emperor Storms, I did not really enjoy that book, sadly. I was really looking forward to it because I really quite liked Queen of Shadows, and I just found it very disappointing, and I can't really pinpoint what it was about Empire of Storms that I disliked. But now I've gotten into Tower of Dawn, it's got to be something to do with the characters or the setting or the plot. And I feel like it's a combination of all three. Those thoughts will be for the Emperor of Storms vlog. Go and check it out if you haven't already. To be honest, at the time of filming this, I still haven't actually edited that vlog yet. So we're a bit behind on videos, but it's fine. I finished my apprenticeship course on Friday. I stopped being an apprentice on Monday. It's Wednesday. It's all very scary. So this book is going to be read actually at a very key point in my life, which is quite strange. I started the Throne of Glass series just as I had got a job. It wasn't my library job, it was a different job, and I feel like I'm coming to the end of my apprenticeship, yeah, while I'm reading this series still. So I started reading Throne of Glass in April 2021. It is March 2023, so it's taken me a very long time to get through this series. There have been a lot of ups and downs, but I'm very nearly at the end. So this is the penultimate book. This is obviously Chaol's book. It takes place at the same time as Empire of Storms, but it takes place on the southern continent. So at the end of Queen of Shadows, there was obviously that big fight in Rifthold where the glass castle was shattered, and it resulted in Chaol being paralysed from the waist down. Well, he was actually completely paralysed, but, and I'd forgotten this, Rowan used his magic to heal him partially, so now Chaol can use his upper half of his body, but he's completely paralysed from the waist down, meaning he has to use a wheelchair. So he has gone to the southern continent to seek out a healer who can fix him. And I use that term loosely because obviously people who are wheelchair users, people who are paralysed, they don't need fixing, but that is how Chaol sees himself, and that is how his disability is being portrayed in this book. So he is accompanied by the new captain of the guard, Nesrin, and she is kind of his companion, because not only have they gone to the southern continent to seek help for Chaol's condition, they have also gone to ask the Emperor, I think he is, to support Aelin in the coming war against the Valg. So I feel like this is the book I have the most comprehension of what is actually supposed to be happening in the story thus far, which is just wild to think, to be honest. So I am 173 pages in so far. That is 14 chapters in. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm actually really enjoying it thus far. And it's wild because I quite liked Queen of Shadows, but I struggled to kind of really comprehend what was actually going on. And then Emperor of Storms, part of the reason I didn't enjoy it so much is because I found it difficult to follow. I feel like there was way too many characters and too many perspectives we were following. Whereas because this is basically 3 perspectives, it's a lot easier to follow and I'm enjoying it a lot more. So in this, we are following Chaol, Nesrin and Irene Towers. If you don't remember, because I didn't, Irene is the healer in the Assassin and the Healer short story from the Assassin's Blade, And so I do vaguely remember reading that story, and I felt like when I read it, it was a little bit random in the sense that it didn't seem to connect to the rest of the stories in the same way the others did, and it felt like it was a little bit separate. But now I understand why we had that story and how important it was. So if you can't remember, in that story something happens to Irene. I believe she's a victim of sexual assault, and she comes across Aelin, who at the time was Selena Sardothian. Selena shows her like self-defense techniques, and it allows her and gives her confidence, I guess, to go and seek out this training she's had in the southern continent to become a real proper healer. So Irene does have magic. It was obviously dormant at the time she met Selena, and she wasn't aware of who Selena was at the time. But it's very interesting to see how much of a key moment this meeting with Selena was to Irene's motivations in this book. When Chaol and Nesryn show up in the southern continent, I'm going to be terrible at remembering names. They've come to Antica. That's the name of the continent. What is the name of the city? Is the city Antica? The city is Antica, isn't it? The city is called Antica. Okay. So yeah, they've arrived in Antica, and the king, the Kagan, sorry, don't know. He's basically said, no, his youngest daughter has been murdered, and I feel like that is going to be a very, very important thing for this plot. So his youngest daughter has been murdered, and so the entire family is kind of in grief at the moment, and that's part of the reason why they're like, we don't want to help Aelin in this war. We are in grief. It's very inappropriate to just come to me and demand this of me. So there's kind of all that going on at the same time. And then there is also the case of Chaol being wheelchair bound and seeking healing from the Torquesme. I'm shit at knowing the names of these places. So he's seeking this healing. Irene is this renowned healer. She's not quite in charge, but the woman in charge has said, like, I want you to be my protege. I want you to take over when I retire. Irene is from the same place as Chaol, and she hated Adalin. She hated the king. She hated the things he did. She has such resentment towards him. So she initially, when she hears about who Chaol is, where he's from, the fact that he served the king of Adalin, she's like, no, I don't want to heal this man. I don't want anything to do with him. And the head healer woman is like, we have a duty of care to people. And I really appreciate that, because it was very reflective of the kind of duty of care that doctors have, where they might not agree with a person, they might really, really dislike someone or their beliefs, what they stand for, who they are. They still have a duty of care, and I really appreciate that discussion. So that kind of convinces Irene to at least meet with Chaol before she decides if she's going to go and heal him. And this injury is very rooted in magic. He has a mark on his spine about where his paralysis starts that is very rooted in magic. And so Irene is able to sense this, and she is like, okay, this is big shit, like, So, as a part of everything, Chaol has like explained to her in a little bit of detail what happened in Rifthold and what's going on with the Valg, just so she has a bit of an idea of like what she's going to be dealing with. And she takes it upon herself to go to the library in the Torquesme and seek out information of this injury, of the Valg, etc. when while she's in there, somebody is murdered. So another one of the healers is murdered, and it's a very similar death to what Chaol and Nesryn have experienced in the past, and they know that it is a Valg that is doing this. So what they think is that the Valg are aware of the fact that Chaol is here, and either know, and they were targeting Irene, so they either don't want Chaol to be healed or to be discovered. We're not quite sure of that yet. On the other hand, at the same time of this healing going on, there is definitely some chemistry between Chaol and Irene. I feel like we're going to have an enemies to lovers thing going on, and I am loving it. They have such chemistry with each other. I have not seen this level of chemistry between characters in this series at all so far. And obviously we've got a lot of pairings up going on. We've got Aelin and Rowan. We've got Dorian and Manon. I'm really struggling to remember people's names. We've got Adian and the shapeshifter woman, and we've also got that dude, that I don't remember his name, who was chasing that little girl woman, even though she's not a little girl, but he was chasing her, and then they teamed up, you know, in the last book. Don't remember either of their names, but there was definitely a thing going on between those two as well. And after all these pairings up, I was wondering, like, who was Kale going to be paired up with at the end of this story? And I feel like it's going to be Irene, and I'm so here for it. I'm loving their chemistry. It's something that's really keeping me interested in the story. These two characters are absolutely fantastic. They've got great banter with each other. I love how Irene is really conflicted about how she doesn't want to help him because of who he is, but I feel like she's going to really get to know him as a person and like see what he's actually all about, and the fact that he does not stand for anything that the King of Adalin did, and how he really like is just a good person at the end of it. And I feel like this is also going to be a lot of healing for Kale as well, not just physically, because I feel like at the end of the day, like, he is going to be able to walk again. I feel like also emotionally he's going to have a lot of growth. Like, Kale is a funny character. Like, I always really liked Kale right from the beginning of this story, and it's been interesting to see him change as a character. So I really liked him in the first two books, and then towards the end of the second book he did become a bit of a dick. And then as time went on, he was kind of very dislikable, but I still initially had like that interest in him as a character. I still quite liked him. So it's interesting to see how his growth is going to occur throughout this book, because at the end of it, he's still Dorian's like best friend. Like, he was never really a bad person in my opinion. So I hope to see a happy ending for him. There was obviously that relationship with Nesrin he had, which again was another thing I'd completely forgotten about, but I don't see them as endgame. I feel like they were a very heat of the moment friends with benefits type relationship, and it's going to be interesting to see who Nesrin ends up with. So Nesrin is kind of at the moment where I am in the story, trying to seek out some information of how the murderer got into the library. She is just about to go searching for some sewers, and one of the princes, what is his name, Sartak, has offered to help her. So I feel like they are going to end up as endgame, possibly. We'll see. So Sartak is one of the sons of the Kargan. And the way that succession occurs in the southern continent is that it's not the oldest who automatically becomes the next king. They are selected by the current reigning Kargan. So it could be any of his children. And Sartak does not think that he has a good chance of becoming the king. So it seems like Sartak and Nesrin have a little bit of chemistry there. He definitely has a bit of an interest in her romantically from the suggestions of what's going on between them. He literally did an Aladdin where he took her on a ride on his rook. I don't even know what kind of creature a rook's going to be. I'm thinking it's some sort of phoenix with like a giant bird. It's described as being massive, talons, golden feathers and a beak. So yeah, but he took her for a ride over the city, and it was not really romantic. Like, it was a way for them to discuss things without the spies in the palace really overhearing them. But it was very like magic carpet ride vibes. I really enjoyed that. So I'd be interested to see if they end up together at the end of it as well. But the main thing I'm really enjoying about this is not just the relationships between the characters, but I'm just very interested in the plot of this. And so that suggests to me that I'm just not interested in the overarching plot of this series where it's big epic battles and fae and stuff. I'm much more interested in the magic that Irene possesses, the relationship she could have with Kale, Kale's internal struggle with his disability and his mental like self, like he hates himself as it is. And I do feel like at the end of this he will be able to walk again, which I do feel like kind of just makes it seem like people with disabilities, people who are paralysed, like, are weak or not whole people. And that's a whole other conversation in itself. Obviously Sarah J Maas is not disabled, so this is not going to be accurate disabled rep from the get-go. It's interesting to see a disabled person so visible in such a huge series from such a huge author. But obviously there's a lot of connotations tied to how he became disabled, how he feels about his disability. And yes, someone who isn't born disabled and becomes disabled later in life might really, really struggle to accept themselves. Especially someone like Kale, where he's like big, strongly man, he's in the army, he has a very narrow view of what makes him a man. And so not being able to walk, not even being able to like guard Irene in the way he wants to protect her from this murderer. Like, he's really, really struggling with that. And so it'd be interesting to see if he can accept himself, first of all, or just kind of accept that he's disabled. Whether or not he continues to be disabled is another question. And I'm really worried that he will be healed and he will have never accepted his disability and seen that it isn't a weakness by the end of the book. So that's something that I'm a little bit concerned about, because I don't think that him being disabled is a weakness. I think he can still be a very, very good hand of the king, a soldier, but in a different way. He could very much still be a general, even if he is bound to his wheelchair. He's a very intelligent man. He still manages to keep up his upper body strength, and Irene is going to help him with his lower body strength and how to maintain that while he's unable to walk. I don't know if he is going to be healed by the end of this. I feel like he probably will be. His injury is very much rooted in magic and this evil thing that is like at the base of his spine. And I feel like a big part of it is going to be him and Irene becoming closer together as a couple, her healing him, them overcoming this thing that's living inside of him. Because this is the other thing, this thing is kind of like eating off something in him. It's being fed by something. So that's also going to be a struggle for Chaol emotionally, perhaps. I don't know. But the point is, I'm very concerned that Chaol is just not going to be able to accept his disability, and that his disability is being portrayed in a very negative way. So I really hope that's not going to be the case, but it's still early stages at the moment. Irene and Chaol have had really their first attempts to deal with this thing that's causing him pain and inability to walk. It is very much rooted in magic. It's like a very evil presence, and they spent 5 hours with her kind of just trying to break through this wall it's built around itself. And that's 5 hours of Irene expending all of her energy, and also Chaol being in absolute agony. So I feel like they're probably going to bond over their trauma, which is very cute. Not cute, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I really like Irene as a character and seeing more of her. I'm very surprised by how much I'm enjoying this book, and I feel like it's going to be very promising. I really hope that the pace keeps up, that I continue to enjoy these characters and explore more of this plot. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if it's just because there's less characters to try and focus on, if it's sort of a much more contained environment because it's at the moment all taking place within this palace. I don't know, but I'm very interested in what's going to happen, and it makes me hopeful for Kingdom of Ash. But I feel like this is going to be a very unique one in the series, and even if I love this book, I probably still won't enjoy Kingdom of Ash as much as I would like to, simply because Kingdom of Ash, it's going to reintroduce all these characters that I don't particularly care about, and it's going to obviously deal with the main plot, which is another thing I don't particularly care about. But I'm hoping to not power through this, but make decent progress on this. I'd like to finish it before the end of the month, but the end of the month is Friday. I don't think that's going to happen. It is very nearly 700 pages, and I'm not reading quite as much as I want to, but it's because I'm spending a lot of time doing other things. It's not because I'm reluctant to pick this up. When I'm picking it up, I'm really enjoying it. Whereas with Empire of Storms, I was reluctant to pick it up because I wasn't enjoying it. So I do think I'm going to finish it soon. I would like to finish it in March, but it's probably going to be April at this point. But yeah, that was a very long update, but I was introducing things. I probably went into a little bit too much depth regarding the plot, because if you guys are watching this video, you're going to know what the plot is, but it helps me to remember what's going on in the plot if I explain it to you. So I don't know how much more I'm going to read today. It is probably about 8:30, nearly 9 o'clock at this point. But I'm going to go in the shower now and get myself ready for bed. I do have to go into work tomorrow morning, but I've got the afternoon off. However, I am also reading Queen of Air and Darkness on audio at the same time as reading Tower of Dawn. So I'm probably going to end up reading Queen of Air and Darkness while I'm like going to and from work and stuff, because it's easier to read because I'm listening to the audio for that. But also I really want to finish that before the end of the month, because I really want to just get it in on my March wrap up. So yeah, that was a really long update, and I will see you guys soon. Obviously, like, it's going to be instant for you guys, but I will see you guys soon when I have another update for you. update. I feel like it has been a hot minute since I've done a reading update. I'm on page 305 and I'm really enjoying the book. I feel like because I'm enjoying it so much, I've just been wanting to read it and not stop every so often to tell you my thoughts. I've also not been annotating this one. This has been the first book in this series where I haven't annotated and tabbed, and I don't know if that's contributing to my enjoyment because I'm not thinking about things to annotate and tab, which is not the point of annotating and tabbing. But there have been points in the book where I've been like, I want to tab that so I can come back to it. But I'm really enjoying it. I really enjoy Kale and Irene's chemistry and their relationship dynamic, and I definitely feel like they are going to end up together by the end of this book. I'm also liking Nesrin getting to know the Prince Sartak. I'm not as interested in Nesrin's storyline as I am with Kale and Irene, probably because Nesrin was more of a side character in the rest of the series, so I don't really know too much about her, and I don't really think she's that interesting of a character, but I'm very intrigued with what's going on with Kale and Irene and their developments as well, with healing Kale's injury, which is very interesting. I can't remember where I was when I started the vlog when I last updated you, so I'm not sure how much has happened since then, but this is a very slow going book. It's very much a slow burn, but I like that about it. There's not much going on in terms of the main plot of the series. Like, there is little bits in there. I'm seeing stuff with the Valg Kings and Irene, learning a little bit about them so that she can heal Kale's injury better. So there is little tidbits in there. They are also possibly being stalked, hunted by a Valg person because of what happened in the library to one of the other healers. But other than that, it's very much focused on character development for Kale, character development for Irene, and I'm really loving that. And I'm loving that it is a little bit slower, that it is focusing more on these characters, and I feel like I'm reading it quite slowly. Like, I'm just under halfway, and I have been reading it for a while, but I did kind of put it down for a bit so that I could focus on Queen of Air and Darkness so I could finish that. But I've lost my train of thought. I am really enjoying it. Like, despite the fact that I feel like I'm reading it slowly, I feel like I'm absorbing more of it, and I'm really taking in what's going on. I'm not sure if I've already mentioned this, but it did happen quite a while ago in the book now, where Nesrin helps Kale be able to ride a horse by having a harness made for him that he could strap into so that he could ride a horse, and he went to do a defense lesson for the other healers at the Tora Kesme. And I really appreciated how the portrayal of his disability was shown, where Irene kind of assumed and didn't think when she told the other healers to help him out of his harness, and she didn't ask Kale for his permission, first of all, if he wanted that, and she also assumed that he would be fine with being touched by these strangers. And I thought it was a really interesting commentary on how disabled people, particularly people who have mobility issues, and especially people who use wheelchairs, are often infantilized and kind of not seen as having their own bodily autonomy. I know it's a very big thing that if you see someone in a chair, you do not touch their chair without their permission, because their chair is an extension of their body. And by Irene assuming that Kale wouldn't mind these strangers helping him out of his harness, and assuming that he wanted help out of his harness as well, was a very interesting commentary on real life when it comes to disability, and I really appreciated that. I feel like as the book's gone on, that Kale hasn't necessarily come to accept his disability, but he's definitely not as bitter about it. I don't know if that's because progress is being made. He's starting to get feeling not just in his toes now, but also in the bottoms of his feet, and I think he's at this point where I am, he's starting to be able to move his ankles ever so slightly as well. I'm not saying that Kale should have just stayed disabled, because I feel like that would distract from probably the main plot of the book. Not the book, but the series. This series isn't about Kale overcoming a disability or getting used to a disability and accepting his disability. That's not what this story is about. So I feel like if that was a story that was going to be told and told well, it would need to be by a disabled author, and it would need to be a bigger focus of the whole series, I think, or at least more than just this book. But it's a very interesting look into disability, particularly in this kind of setting. I very rarely see disabled characters in a fantasy setting. I think the only other example I've read recently, at least, is Glocta in The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, who has mobility issues as well. He walks with a cane, and I believe he's got like a mangled leg. So he has got movement, it's just very limited. Whereas Cale obviously can't walk at all, and the main plot point of this book is healing Cale's injury. And I don't know, I feel like it's a very touchy subject, and I feel like Sarah J Maas is probably not the author to discuss this and to write about this. There are obviously bigger issues that can be looked into when it comes to disability, particularly in a medieval fantasy setting. And Sarah J Maas is not the author for that because she's not disabled. I'm not disabled either, so I can't really give much of an opinion on this, and I feel like if I wanted to read a well done disabled character, it would be from a disabled author. So everything that I say, everything I see about Cale, I'm taking with a pinch of salt, because I don't know if this is good rep. I can't say if it's good rep because I'm not disabled, the author's not disabled, but I feel like it's very interesting what it's touching on when it comes to disability in fiction. But other than that, I feel like I do have to talk about Cale's disability very much because it's a very big part of this book. I also absolutely love his relationship. I've said this earlier, but I'm loving what's going on between him and Irene. There was a scene I've just read where Irene goes into Cale's room at dawn. He told her that it was fine, and she finds him in bed with Nesrin, and she assumes that they've spent the night together, that they've slept together, and she's really embarrassed about it. And seeing her reaction very clearly shows that she has a crush on him. She very much likes Cale in that way. Nothing happened between Cale and Nesrin, and I feel like it's a bit sad that Cale and Nesrin's relationship has fizzled a little bit, but I think their relationship was very much a heat of the moment thing and not a long-term potential marriage, kids type situation. It was very much just a fling between them, and they kind of have accepted it, but they've not discussed it with each other yet. But it was interesting to see Irene's reaction to finding Cale in bed with Nesrin. I was shocked at first. I thought that Cale had slept with Nesrin, but that was not what happened. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what's going to happen between Cale and Irene's relationship further. Like, I just really want them to get together by the end of this book. I am very much rooting for them. I feel like they are my favourite couple in this whole series. I can't believe that. You know, they're a very small part of this 7-book series, but, well, 8 books really if you count this short story collection. But they are my favourite thing about the whole thing so far. I would even go as far to say, when I'm only 300 pages in, that this is my favourite book in the series so far. I can't believe that. Like, I don't know, I'm just enjoying it so much more than I enjoyed Empire of Storms. I find it a lot more engaging. I don't know if it's because it's a slightly more contained setting, and we have fewer characters to focus on, and the characters we are focusing on I find much more interesting. Like, there's all of the Kargan's children as well, who are all vying for the throne, and we don't see a lot of them. We see a fair bit of Sartak because he does have a little bit of a relationship with Nesrin. I feel like that he has a crush on her, she's got a crush on him. At the moment they are going somewhere. They are flying on his rook to some mountains. At the moment they're in the Azamil Mountains, and I think they're going to the Tavern Mountains. I can't really remember why, like I completely missed that. And again, I'm not that interested in Nesrin's plot throughout this. I'm very focused on what's going on between Irene and Cale. I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, I'm just enjoying a lot more like what's going on in this book compared to Emperor of Storms, where there was just too much going on. I think in Emperor of Storms there was too many characters, they were bouncing all over the map. I just found it really difficult to follow, unfortunately. I don't know why in comparison to this, but it's probably something to do with the fact that it's less characters in a more contained setting. But I'm also finding the setting a lot more interesting. Like, Era of Fire very much just like took place in Wendlin, I felt, and it was a lot of in like the Fae side of the world, and this is a different part of the world as well. This is taking place on the southern continent, but I don't know, I think it's just a much more interesting part of this whole world that Sarah J Maas has created in the Throne of Glass series. I just find it a lot more intriguing. In terms of what's happening with the plot, again, there's not been much development. It's more about the characters, I feel, in this book than the plot itself, but there was a very interesting development that there is actually 3 Valk Kings, and we know the whereabouts of one of them, who he's possessing Duke Harrington. And Irene made a really good point that they don't know, like our main band of characters, they don't know where the other 2 are. They don't know if they were killed in the original battle or if they're just dormant in their realm waiting to come back to like this realm. And I'm scared. I'm very scared. That was probably the most interesting plot development that I've seen. Okay, maybe not the most interesting, but one of the most interesting plot developments I've seen throughout the whole series. And I'm very excited to see what's going to happen. I'm very scared. I'm worried that these 2 other kings are going to find their way into this world. I'm worried that they might have something to do with the other 2 Sarah J Maas series, because they are all interconnected. We know this now. And I'm wondering how the Throne of Glass series is going to be interconnected with Crescent City and ACOTAR. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen, and I'm worried. Yeah, but that is it for this vlog update. I have gotten home from work today. I had my last day as an apprentice. It was a weird day, but I'm kind of glad that it's finished, to be honest. It has been a very long time coming. It's so weird to think that when I started the Throne of Glass series, I hadn't even started my apprenticeship yet, and I have started and finished my apprenticeship and I still haven't finished this series. Yeah, I start my agency hours as of tomorrow. I'm staying with the library. It's just with the agency instead of actually working for the council, because there aren't any jobs available for me at the moment, unfortunately. So I'm staying with working with the library through the agency for the time being until something happens. I hope something happens soon, but I'm very fortunate that I've actually got full-time hours for the whole of April. I'm going to be working for our education library service and helping out there for the entire month of April, which means I'm doing a 9 to 5 job instead of like 6 hours a week, which is what I was scared of. So yeah, at least I have full-time hours, but I feel like it's gonna kill me off because I'm going to be very tired. Because I'm not used to actually doing like full-time hours. I'm used to having 1 day a week at home where I can just get up as I need to and then do my full day's worth of study. I don't have that anymore. I have to get up and go out to work for 5 days a week. But I don't have any late nights, which is nice, and I don't have to work any Saturdays, which is also nice. So it's gonna be different. But hello, yeah. We've got a reading update. Many things have happened since I last updated you. I'm pretty sure I last updated you when I was about halfway through. I'm now on page 460, which means I've only got about 200 pages left. And before I sort of go over my thoughts on everything that's happened since my last update, Kale and Irene have kissed. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. I'm a little bit sad it's taken up to this point in the book for it to happen, but it's been very slow burn and juicy and I have loved it. However, we have kind of spent a lot more time with Nesrin in this second half of the book. The book is split into 2 parts, as they generally have been. I think that first appeared in Air of Fire. Correct me if I'm wrong. This second part has been a lot more focused on Nesrin. She has gone with Prince Sartak to the area where the rooks kind of are kept and met his half sister and his half mother. I don't really fully understand the dynamic, but basically they're like the aerial army, I suppose, of this kingdom. And so she has gone with him. They have been searching these different towers that were built by the Fae for something, I'm not entirely sure, and while they've been doing this they have discovered these giant spiders that were once part of the Vald army a very long time ago. I'm not sure if they're going to these towers looking for these spiders or if they're looking for something else and they happen to be coming across the spiders, but there was a scene in one of the towers towards the sort of start of them looking for something that was really good. It was very Indiana Jones, like these towers are like booby trapped. I really enjoyed the dynamic of what was going on and the action that was happening in that scene. But overall, I just don't find Nesryn a very interesting character, and I'm not very invested in what's going on with her and Sartak. So when we've been spending a lot of time with them, I'm just not as interested in the story, unfortunately, but there is a lot of development in regards to the overarching plot, so I can see why these scenes are important. I just don't particularly care about Nesryn as a character, sadly. I'm much more invested in what is going on with Kale, with him learning to walk again, with him and Irene, and I would have probably preferred this book to have solely focused on them as characters, on their relationship, on his growth into kind of accepting his disability but also overcoming it. And a lot of his development has actually happened off page the last 100 or so pages, which I really am quite disappointed about, because we spent a lot of the first part of the book following Kale, following Irene as they worked together to heal him, and he's made significant progress. At first he regained feeling up to his knee, and then just before the kiss happened he was actually able to stand and walk. And I feel like a lot of that progress that we've seen, it's happened over the course of about 4 weeks perhaps. It was all entirely off page, so that was a lot of progress with his healing we haven't seen, but it's also a lot of relationship development that we haven't seen on page as well. And whilst that chemistry between Irene and Kale was always there, I would have liked to have seen those small moments where they went out to dinner in the city together and they had time together and they developed a friendship with each other beyond their working relationship as healer and patient. So I'm a little bit sad that that has been missed off page, because I would have loved to have seen those quieter moments. That's what I live for in books. I love the action and the drama of fantasy, but overall what I really live for is the fluff moments between couples, to be honest. So I'm a little bit disappointed we didn't get to see any of that on page, but I'm hoping that there will be more of Irene and Kale in the last 200 pages of the book to really kind of solidify this relationship that they are developing with each other. Obviously all they've done so far is kiss, but there is definitely hints that there is going to be more happening between them, and I feel like they're on the same page with each other in regards to what they want their relationship to be. I feel like as well Nesryn is probably going to end up with Sartak. She's obviously very conflicted because she's aware she needs to be with Kale and she needs to be doing her duty as the captain of the Royal Guard for Rifthold and as the captain of Dorian's army. I feel like she's not going to want to keep that title. It's kind of been hinted that there is a rook who needs a rider in the Eyrie, and they're Sartak and his half-sister, whose name I can't remember, they've both kind of hinted that she should maybe see how that she and that rook will get on and take it out for a ride. And she's like, no, because that's not fair to me and it's not fair to the rook, because I have to leave soon, I can't stay. But I feel like what's going to happen with Nesryn is perhaps she will develop a bit of a relationship with Sartak. She might possibly stay with him and be a rook rider, and that will be a very, very key relationship to securing the army from this place that I've forgotten the name of again. Antica, that's it. The Kagan has basically completely written off Kale. They have had a bit of an argument, and I feel like the Kagan does not want anything to do with Aelin and the army that she has requested, essentially. I feel like that is not going to happen now. I don't think that Kale stands a chance at repairing this relationship he was seeking. So I feel like Nesryn and Sartak are going to be very, very key in supporting Aelin, and I feel like that is where the support from this part of the world is going to come from. It's going to come from Sartak and his rook riders rather than the actual maybe foot army, and perhaps he could convince his father to support Aylin's cause in the end. But very interesting developments have happened. The most exciting thing for me was the kiss between Chaol and Irene, especially the circumstances in which it happens. So Chaol had just had this argument with the Kargan and returned to his room, and he was really angry, and he was sort of taking this anger out on Irene. He had been manhandled essentially because he had been wheeled out of the room where this argument happened back to his rooms, and he felt very violated because his chair had been touched, but also because he feels like if he could stand, if he could walk, they wouldn't have been able to do that to him. But Irene made the point that this would have happened regardless of whether you were in a chair or not. Like, they would have removed you from that situation. And I also feel like he was a little bit betrayed because the guard that did have to take him away does actually have a prosthetic limb. I think he had a prosthetic arm. So it wasn't something they necessarily bonded over, but they definitely had an understanding between each other because of it. So I feel like perhaps Chaol is a little bit betrayed by that as well. But obviously this guard was just doing what he was told to do. He was following his king's orders. So Chaol was really pissed off about that, and Irene was doing something. She told him to stand up. I think she was just sick of him, and she just told him to stand up, and she was kind of pulling him up while they were sort of arguing between each other. And I feel like she was purposefully fueling anger to try and encourage him to stand. And as he stood, he said something he did not mean. It was very hurtful for Irene, and she was about to just completely bolt and say, like, forget this. I'm done with this. I'm done with trying to heal you. I'm done with everything. Basically what happened was Chaol was like, I'm really sorry, like, I didn't mean it. And to prove that he did not mean what he said, and he was actually talking about himself with regards to what he said to Irene and about Irene, to prove that, he started to walk towards her to try and stop her from leaving the room. And he walked towards Irene. He took her in his hands and he gave her a big smooch, and it was, oh, I loved it. It was fantastic. I'm very excited to see how their relationship is going to develop for the rest of the book. I'm so shocked with how much I'm enjoying this. I've just edited the Emperor of Stormflag and posted that today. So looking back at my thoughts and feelings on that book and how much I just wasn't enjoying it because I wasn't invested in the characters at all, it's so different to how I feel about this one. Like, I don't particularly care for Nesryn. I'm just not as invested in her plotline as with Chaol and Irene, but what's happening with Nesryn is very important, I think, to the overarching plot of the whole series. But I don't think this book could save the Throne of Glass series for me, but I definitely feel like it's going to be a book that I will look back on very fondly and remember very fondly. If I ever want to reread this series, I don't know if I will, but this is definitely a book that is unique in this series, and it's a very positive thing. You know, I was so apprehensive to read it and so concerned that I just wasn't going to enjoy it because I wasn't invested in the characters in Emperor of Storms, and I'm just so much more invested in this one and with Chaol and Irene. And I feel like the actual plot of the series is just not something that I particularly care about. I'm interested to see how it's going to tie in with the rest of the Sarah J Maas series. So we know that there are other worlds out there in this book. We know the Valk come from another dimension, and it's the same in the Crescent City series. We know that there are other worlds and other dimensions out there because I can't remember what they're called, but the like archangel people, not quite like Hunt, like angel, but the people that are kind of above him, the godlike people, we know that they came from another dimension, and I feel like it's going to be something to do with maybe the godlike Fae in this series. And we know the Valg have come from another dimension. Well, I think the Valg could have come from hell, that is discussed in the Crescent City series. So I'm very interested to see how it could all possibly tie together when we get Crescent City 3. And I am aware that there is a scene in the next book that kind of ties ACOTAR into the Throne of Glass series. I'm not entirely sure of the details of that scene, but I am aware that there is something that ties this to ACOTAR, and obviously we know that ACOTAR is tied in with Crescent City. So yeah, I'm just very interested to see the overarching thing with all these different worlds, these different dimensions, and I'm very interested to see how the sort of multiverse will play into it. I don't know why, but I love a multiverse plotline. Time travel, other universes, it's just something I really love. On the ground level, I'm enjoying this book because I love Kale and Irene's relationship and their dynamic with each other, and I really wish that we had just seen what was going on with them on page for the last few weeks in the book. Yeah, I'm surprised like I haven't finished it yet because I'm really enjoying it, but I've just not been reading as much. I'm playing a lot of video games. I got Resident Evil Village a few weeks ago, so I've been playing that a lot, but I like to play that at night time for obvious reasons. It's a horror game. So of an evening, instead of reading, I've been playing that or something else. So I actually spent some time reading today during the daytime. I would like to try and get to page 500 before the end of the day. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm in no rush to finish this book. I do want to try and finish my April TBR, and I'm aware that we're at the end of the second week of April now, and I still haven't finished a book, and I have a lot of chunky fantasies to read on this TBR, but I'm in no rush to finish it. I'm just in no rush to finish it, and I'm enjoying taking my time with it. So that's the main thing. Yeah, I'm probably going to play Resident Evil now, and I will update you when I've read a bit more of the book. Maeve is the queen of the Valg. There have been many developments that I will discuss in a proper update soon, but I'm shocked. I'm very shocked. There are many things for me to discuss because I finished the book. I wanted to do an update yesterday before I knew I was going to finish it today, but I just didn't get around to doing one. So I will go in order of events instead of just telling you my final thoughts, because these last 200 or so pages, so much has happened, so much has been revealed, and it's like true Sarah J Maas fashion where the last 200 pages of her books, just everything comes together, and I'm just completely blown away. So I think I did a little clip to say, oh my god, Maeve is a Valg queen, but before that we had the sex scene between Kale and Irene. I was just really happy to see them really like properly confess their feelings for each other and get together. Obviously this series is like young adult going into new adult, so the smut is not really there, but I did enjoy it. I liked it, and I feel like these are two characters that are just like, they're just perfect for each other. Like, I just really root for them, and yeah, it was just great. Other than that though, I can't really remember much of like exact details. Nesrin and Sartak were looking for the Rook hatchlings, which I'd forgotten that's what they were looking for, and they did eventually locate them, and the scene where they went to go and like get these eggs and these hatchlings was absolutely awful. I thought it was a really great scene. Like everything that happened with them I really enjoyed. It felt very Indiana Jonesy, and they were going through the different traps, but the thing that's like ingrained in my brain is the spider stepping on their baby Rook and killing it. It was awful. It was so awful. And then there was obviously the big fight scene. Sartak confessed that he is in love with Nesrin. I'm just going to jump ahead because I can't contain it. I can't believe that his father has named him heir. I feel like that was always going to be the end game after seeing all the different siblings interact with each other. I feel like Sartak was probably, because he had the most page time. But the way his father decided he was going to be heir, I absolutely love, because Sartak said, well, if I can't marry who I want to marry just because she's a commoner, like I don't want to be the heir. And his dad was like, you deserve it then. And I loved that. What else has happened before the big finale? Oh my god, I can't remember. The big finale. So obviously Irene healed Kale completely, basically. The thing that is like the Valg thing was still inside him the whole time, but she did basically completely heal him. And then they went to go find Hafiza, is that her name, the head healer woman, because they needed to find out some information about the temple, the Fae temple that they found, because they now know that Fae resided in this part of the world, in Antarctica and the surrounding desert, of course. Yeah, that's what kicked off the big fight at the end, and they finally found out who the Valg spy was, and that they were inside Duva, the pregnant daughter of the Kargan. I really enjoyed that fight scene. When Kale was about to die, like I was a little bit tense, but knowing Sarah J Maas, like it was all okay in the end. There was another bond made, so now he and Irene are kind of tied together. His ability to walk is now linked to her like magic reserve, I suppose, and now like if one of them dies, the other will die as well. It's very, very Feyre and Rhysand. It's very interesting though that there is I don't know if she's done it on purpose or if it's just a trope she likes to write, but it's very interesting that she has now got two couples in her two of her series where they are bonded in such a way, and it does make me wonder if maybe something similar is going to happen to Bryce and Hunt in the Crescent City series. I'm just completely blown away by Tower of Dawn. I can't believe how much I've enjoyed it. I haven't compiled it yet, but I feel like this has 5-star potential. I am going to wrap up the vlog in this clip, so I won't come back to tell you what I did eventually rate it. You'll have to keep an eye out for my wrap up for that, but I do feel like this is 5-star potential, and this was the book in the series I wanted to read the least. So I'm very, very just shocked. I can't believe that. I feel like my only thing about the ending, I thought it was very sweet, and I enjoyed the way everything wrapped up with our two couples married and getting married. I do feel like Kale and Irene being married by the end of this book was a little bit of a cop-out. I just get really sad when Sarah J Maas doesn't put the weddings on page. Like, why doesn't she do that? All of our main characters in her series have been married off page. You've got Kale and Irene, Aelin and Rowan have been married off page, Rhys and Feyre also got married in secret off page as well. Why won't she let the reader have that lovely celebration with her couples? But also I feel like it was a little bit too soon, because Irene and Kale did only meet like a few months ago, and I know it's this whole like one true love soulmates thing she has going on in her worlds, and yeah, there is an impending war, so it's like if you're going to get married you may as well do it now. But I do feel like it was just way too soon. Like, they've only really just met. But I do feel like as well it's a different kind of time period, isn't it? So it's like a medieval type setting, I suppose. So I guess it would have been normal back then, normal for this world. Again, there's this impending war, they could die at any moment, so I guess it's like they may as well get married. I just wish it wasn't an afterthought. I still was not as interested in Nesryn and Sartak's kind of plot as I was with Kale and Irene, but I think it's just because I prefer Kale and Irene as characters. But it was exciting to see what Nesryn and Sartak were up to, because the nature of their storyline in the second half of the book was very intriguing, and obviously they found out that Maeve is a Valk queen. I'm so scared to find out what's going to happen with that. It's made me a lot more invested in the main plot of the series now. I feel like this should not have been a separate book, because there are so many things in Emperor of Storms that now make sense, that I remember like complaining about when I did my vlog for that. Like, I didn't understand a lot of what was going on, and I feel like it's because those plot points are brought together in this book, and there's so many big plot reveals in this book that when you just read Empire of Storms on alone and you don't like tandem read, you do miss a lot of it. And I feel like part of the reason this is such a strong book in the series is because those really, really important plot points have been brought together. But I also feel like had it just been like one book together, it would have been way too long. I like that this is separate, because we do get those moments with Kale, Irene, Nesryn and Sartak to see their relationships develop. I think I remember someone commenting on a video of mine saying they don't really understand why they were split like this, and I remember replying it was very Game of Thrones, where George R. R. Martin has split books that take place over the same time period based on location. I think this was A Storm of Swords and A Feast for Crows, or it's A Feast for Crows and A Dance of Dragons, where those books take place at this over the same period of time. It's just they've split the plot based on the locations of the characters. So I think it's the last two books where A Feast for Crows is mainly characters in the south of Westeros and the east, and then A Dance of Dragons is like mostly northern characters, I think, and that's how he split it. So although the plot is like taking place over the same period of time, you're seeing different parts of the world, and that's why this is split like that. And so Sarah J Maas, I feel like, has done that because this is taking place with characters in the south of the world, and then Empire of Storms is characters who are a little bit further north. So I see why she split the plot like this, because these characters are in different locations, but at the same time they do stand alone as books, like on their own. I just think that Empire of Storms would have been a lot stronger had it had the magic of Tower of Dawn. I still stand that I didn't enjoy Empire of Storms. Reading this has not made me enjoy Empire of Storms in hindsight. Like I don't look back on that book fondly, but this is definitely my favourite in the whole series now. I love Chaol. I absolutely adore Irene. I think she's probably my favourite character in the entire series. And I'm so shocked at how much I've enjoyed this. I just can't believe it. Like, I'm so glad that I did vlog me reading these books now, because part of the reason I wanted to vlog myself reading this series for the first time is because I just wanted to kind of look back on how I felt. Like, I love the ACOTAR series. You guys know I love Crescent City. And so when I started to do these vlogs, I thought it would be a great way for me to document something that might be another favourite series. And I was so disappointed, like consistently being disappointed by each book. I really liked Queen of Shadows, but not anywhere near as much as I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed Crown of Midnight because of the plot twist at the end with Aelin being who she is. But this, I enjoyed the entirety of this book. Like, I was a little bit, not bored by Nesrin's plot at the very beginning, but I just kind of felt like she was a bit of a pointless character at the start, I think. And as time went on, she obviously became a much more important player because of what she was discovering with Sartak. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. And it's funny because it's the only book in the series I haven't annotated yet. So I haven't even got like a record of how much I enjoyed it. Yeah. I don't know. I just really loved it. It was fantastic. I'm looking forward to reading Kingdom of Ash now, but I'm also very, very nervous because I know it's obviously going to reintroduce Aelin and Rowan and everybody. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel. Like, if Kingdom of Ash was just Chaol and Irene, I know I would love it. But I feel like I'm not gonna like Kingdom of Ash, because it's bringing everything together. It's going to have so many more characters again. I'm scared. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. But I know the one thing I can be confident is that it's going to be a happy ending, because that's what Sarah J Maas writes. She does not do a bad thing. She does a happy ending. And she always has the like cavalry come in at the end and everything's okay. So I know, like, I don't need to be worried in that sense that something bad is going to happen, that it's not going to be a happy ending. Am I scared main characters are going to die? Absolutely not. I don't think any of our main players are going to die, especially not Chaol. Like, Chaol's had a near-death experience and he's okay. Mostly. So I don't think any of our main characters are going to die. I don't really know how it's going to play out. Like, I can't really predict any of that, but I just know it's going to be fine in the end, because that's just the sort of books that she writes. But I am a little bit worried I'm just not going to enjoy it based on the fact I didn't enjoy Empire of Storms, and I was very excited for that book. But I'm very, very surprised at how much I've enjoyed this one, so we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Yeah. I don't think I have any more thoughts on this. There was obviously the little epilogue, Fireheart, which brought us back to the events of Empire of Storms and the ending of that, and Aelin being in the iron sarcophagus with Maeve, and it has ended with her being taken out of the sarcophagus and Maeve has said, let's begin. So I am nervous with what's going to happen in regards to that, but like I said, I know it's going to be fine in the end, so yeah. But I think that is probably it for the vlog. I don't think I have many more thoughts. I've pretty much told you how I feel about it. I just really enjoyed it. I feel like it is probably the first and only 5-star book in the whole series for me, which I don't think any of us could have expected. I honestly did not think that any of the books in this series could have been 5-star potential. So I'm very delightfully surprised. I'm very, very delightfully surprised. I'm glad as well that I took my time to read this. Like, it's taken me probably 2 weeks to read this book. And I'm glad that I took my time with it, because if I had forced myself to read it, forced myself to read like 100 pages a day, try and not exactly rush through it, just put a lot of pressure on myself to read it, I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. And just taking my time with it, I've absolutely, yeah, I really liked it. It was really good. So yeah, I think that is it for this vlog, for real this time. I just had a really great time reading this book, and I feel like it was really shown with how many thoughts I've actually had compared to Empire of Storms, where I feel like I just complained a lot and was just, I just don't care about what's happening, so I didn't have anything to tell you guys. Like, I was just like, I don't care. But because I've been a lot more invested in the plot this time, I have had thoughts and have really enjoyed the reading experience. But yeah, so that is it for the Tower of Dawn vlog. Keep an eye out for the Kingdom of Ash one, which will be the last book, the last vlog in this series that has been now going for over 2 years. I can't believe it. I don't know when I'm going to get to Kingdom of Ash. I'm hoping to read it relatively soon. I haven't done my rolls for May and June just yet, but I hope I can get Kingdom of Ash on there, because I want to read it, because I'm not exactly excited to read it, like I've said, but I want to read it soonish. But also, I just want to finish the series. I really just want to finish the series. But also, Kingdom of Ash is 1,000 pages long, so I'm just like, if I am reading it in May and June, everything else is probably going to be a novella or a graphic novel, because that's a lot of pages just for one book, and it will probably take me a whole month to read it, so we'll see. I don't think I've got any readathons planned for May and June, so hopefully I can squeeze it in and not have to worry about readathons or anything. But yeah, so I don't know when I'm reading Kingdom of Ash. Hopefully May or June. Hopefully May or June, because I just really want to finish this series. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read Tower of Dawn and what you thought of it. Again, please try and avoid spoilers in the comments, just in case anyone is watching this video and goes straight to the comments and they haven't like read the book. I don't want anyone to be spoiled without purposely being spoiled. So if you've got any discussions on the book, please just try and keep it spoiler free. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on Tower of Dawn. If you haven't already and you would like to, please do consider subscribing. I post a new video every single week. And that is it from me today, guys. Bye!